The land of Ukraine has been the battleground for centuries. Caught between two powerful forces, the Russian Empire and the West. It's a place where ambition, blood, and betrayal meet under the shadow of empires. From the rise of the Kievan Rus to the rise of the Russian Empire, Ukraine was never fully free. It was a prize, both a symbol of power and a territory to control. With each passing century, Ukraine's people fought for something that seemed almost impossible: freedom. Yet, they were always crushed under the weight of empires that saw them as mere pawns. The harsh winters, the battles, the sieges, the fear of being swallowed up by a greater power was always in the air. Imagine the feeling of being a Ukrainian peasant, hearing the rumblings of a new empire rising from the east, knowing that your very identity might be erased. Russian Tsars and Soviet dictators didn't just take the land, they took their spirit. And for those who resisted, there was only retribution. The land became scarred with the marks of history, each one darker than the last. A cycle of war, oppression, and fear. The question was always the same: would Ukraine ever be free of this shadow, or would it forever remain bound by the chains of history? The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 seemed like a beacon of hope for Ukraine. It was a chance to breathe, but hope quickly turned to terror. Ukraine's independence was meant to mark the beginning of a new era. But instead, it opened the door to something darker. Russia, still wounded from losing its grip on the empire, saw Ukraine's sovereignty as a betrayal. The uneasy peace that followed was built on shifting sands. Ukraine's ambition to align with Europe and NATO sent shockwaves through the Russian government. The lines between ally and enemy blurred. As Russia stared at the encroaching West, Ukraine was caught in the middle. The West reached out with one hand, while Russia's cold grip tightened with the other. The clock was ticking. Every move mattered. Imagine the fear of a young Ukrainian standing at the crossroads of the world. Will they join the West, or will they fall into the shadows of Russia once more? With each step, Ukraine's sovereignty was at risk. The ambition for freedom would have to be fought for and paid for with blood. The streets of Kyiv were filled with chaos protests, turned to riots, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the frozen air. The people, emboldened by a new dream of European integration, faced off against their own government. The revolution was not just about politics, it was about survival. The old forces were crumbling, but the new order was still unsure. And then came Russia's reaction. Crimea was seized, Ukrainians were betrayed, and the land was fractured. But Russia's soldiers, silent, methodical, and ruthless, stormed in under the cover of darkness. There was no warning. The people of Crimea woke up to find their world changed forever. In the east, in Donbass, the terror was just beginning. Pro-Russian rebels, fueled by Moscow's power, took up arms. The West could only watch, paralyzed by the terrifying reality that this wasn't just a local conflict, it was a war for control of a nation's soul. As Ukraine's soldiers faced Russian-backed forces, they realized they were fighting for more than just borders. They were fighting for their very existence. The world held its breath. The lines between ally and enemy became blurry, a war of ideology, of power, and of a nation's future. If Ukraine fell, would the rest of the world crumble with it? The stakes were higher than ever. In the cold offices of Brussels, Washington, and Moscow, world leaders knew that this wasn't just about Ukraine. It was about the future of global power. Russia's actions were shaking the very foundations of Europe. While the West struggled to find a way to respond without pushing the world into an abyss, the European Union's reaction was slow, its unity tested, sanctions were imposed, but they seemed like a token gesture, a half-hearted attempt to force Russia to retreat. Russia, undeterred, saw the sanctions as a challenge and opportunity to show the world its resolve. Meanwhile, NATO, ever divided, couldn't agree on the right course of action. The United States, under President Obama, knew the stakes. But to send American soldiers into this conflict was to risk everything. It wasn't just about Ukraine anymore. It was about whether Russia would be allowed to rewrite the rules of war. Each decision felt like a step closer to something darker. The world stood on the edge. A misstep, just one misstep, could ignite a global war. The fear of World War III was palpable. How long could the balance of power hold before it cracked wide open? As the conflict in Ukraine intensified, Asia watched from the shadows, silent, calculating, waiting. China, Russia's greatest ally, knew that global dominance could be theirs if Russia fell. But they also knew that too much interference could bring them into the storm. They stayed on the sidelines, cautious, yet ready to exploit the situation. But China's economic dominance grew stronger, and as Russia became more isolated, the two nations drew closer. But the real fear was that this conflict would spread, and Asia would no longer be safe. India, too, found itself torn between its long-standing defense agreements with Russia and its growing ties with the West. The power balance was shifting. If this conflict spread, it would engulf the world. And in this new age of globalization, there would be no escaping the consequences. Could China rise as the world's new power? Or would this war signal the beginning of something far more dangerous, an alliance of darkness that would consume everything? The clock was ticking, and Asia's involvement was only a matter of time. The war rages on, but the real question isn't just about Ukraine anymore. It's about what Russia represents in what it's willing to do to preserve its empire. In the shadows of every political decision, the world sees the possibility of World War III. Each day, the stakes grow higher. Every new escalation feels like a countdown, each tick of the clock drawing the world closer to chaos. The air is thick with fear, with uncertainty. The lines between right and wrong blur. NATO, the United States, and even China have to ask themselves, what is the cost of standing firm? If the conflict spills beyond Ukraine's borders, if Russia, pushed into a corner, escalates further, the consequences will be its allies could turn on each other, and the fragile alliances could shatter. nuclear powers face the very real possibility of an all-out war, one that no one can control. It's not just a fight for Ukraine's future. It's a fight for the future of the entire world. Will the darkness swallow us all, or will diplomacy find a way to turn back the clock? Conclusion: can World War III be avoided? The question is no longer, what happens next? It's, how long can the world hold on before it breaks? The spectre of World War III looms like a dark shadow, threatening to engulf everything. But there is still hope that reason, diplomacy, and a shared desire for peace will pull humanity back from the edge. To avoid global conflict, the world must act quickly and collectively. The sanctions must be harsher, but the talks must be constant. The military support must be balanced by diplomatic pressure. Nations must work together, for Ukraine's struggle is not just its own, it is everyone's. The stakes are higher than ever. The choice is clear: risk everything or find a way to walk back from the edge. The future of the world is in the balance.